Hi all. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. If you are new, welcome. My name is Amira and my channel is all about trying new makeup, talking about new makeup, but also finding new and exciting ways to be inspired by the makeup you already own. If that sounds good to you, I hope you will consider subscribing, and if you enjoyed today's video, hitting the like button. Today, guys, we are going to be discussing some of my favorite transitional palettes. And what I mean by that are palettes that are great transitions from summer to fall. We are in August, guys. Fall is right there. I can see it. I can smell it. I can almost touch it. I'm so excited. The high today is only 72. Beautiful breeze. I am in my happy place right now. So I figured today would be a perfect day to film a video talking about the palettes in my collection that I reach for during this transitional season. So let's get into it. All right, so first up, I'm going to talk about the palette that is actually right on my eyes because I feel like this is a really perfect example of what I mean by a transitional palette. This is the Natasha Denona Sunrise palette, and there's only 3 shadows on my eyes, and I'll show you which ones they are. It's Morgan, Jasper, and then what's this one? Azalea. So Jasper, Azalea, and Morgan are the only 3 on my eyes. But what I love about this is that this looks like a really beautiful summery palette, right? But you can take these really beautiful oranges and these dusty reds and these sort of yellows and create these beautiful sort of fall tones on the eye, because really that's what fall is all about. It's about oranges and burgundies and yellows. And this palette has all of that. And depending on how you juxtapose these shades against each other on the eye, you can get really beautiful fall looks. I have used this palette many a time, you know, like August, September, even into October at certain points, and I feel like it's just a beautiful transitional. I think this is a beautiful palette. It's kind of underrated. This is actually the first Natasha Denona palette I ever purchased, and this is sort of what got me into wanting to purchase some of her larger, more expensive palettes, because Sunrise is one of the middies, so it's only about $65, which is, when I say only, I mean only. You know, for Natasha Denona, it's only. But it's the most affordable besides her minis. And I've used this palette many a fall day and gotten beautiful looks. But I did a summery look here so you could see that you can get a really pretty bold summery look, and then you can take this burgundy all in the like outer corner, and you can take these deep rich reds and get a beautiful fall look. Next up is another Natasha Denona, and I have about 3 on this list because you guys know I love my Natasha Denona palettes. I would say her palettes for me in my collection are second only to my Pat McGrath's. So this one is considered a strictly summery palette. Like, this came out in the summer. I wore it all the summer. The season that it came out, I wore it that entire season. But I was looking at it and I'm like, you know what? This actually makes a really beautiful fall palette too. Especially when, and I'll show you what I mean. So look at this palette here. This is the bronze palette. It's beautiful. It's stunning. It's bronzy golds and, you know, metallics and mattes, and it's a beautiful palette, and it's such an easy palette to use. And when you look at it, it does give you that sort of like bronzy golden glow vibe that you get from summer, you know, makeup. But Tasha gave us these 2 shades here. And then she gave us these really beautiful, rich red tones and mattes and metallics. But these here, and I'm gonna, if I can remember, I'm gonna insert a picture of me using these during the fall. I've created looks with just these shades and they're so beautiful. I would take one of these like sort of yellow based mattes, and then I would take this all over my lid and I would apply this over it as well. You can get stunning deep rich fall looks, but you can also still get your glowy summer bronze vibe because it is the bronze palette after all. But this is a palette that I think very easily translates to fall season. Again, because you've got these golden tones, you know, the golden tones are going to give you that fall leaf, you know, leaves falling from the trees are turning, you know, orange and red. It gives you all of that. So I think for me, I think this is I think it's actually a very smart palette, because even though it was released in the summer, it's a very useful palette all year round, and I've used it all year round. Next up is the newest palette to my collection. I haven't bought a ton of palettes this year. I was on a no buy for the first 3 months of the year, and then more recently I've just been a bit more selective about what I'm purchasing, specifically palettes. I own a ton of palettes, and there's very few color stories now that I'm like have to have. There are a few, and I do have quite a little list that I'm gonna go, maybe at some point we'll go over what's on my wish list. I'm probably not going to purchase anything specific right now. I'm off my no buy, but I'm also not going out and buying a bunch of new makeup. You know, I just did a declutter, and which really reinvigorated my excitement for my collection, sort of getting rid of all of the detritus and the things that get in the way. I'm really looking at it with new eyes, and I'm very excited about the makeup that I own now. So I'm a little bit more cautious and more selective about what I'm purchasing. But to cut to the chase, this is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Nouveau palette, and it is the palette that I bought in June for my birthday. And when you look at this palette, I mean, it looks quite springy, it looks quite summery, but I also think it looks quite fall. I mean, you've got this muted olive tone, you've got this sort of, I would say it's a green, it's a metallic green. But then you also have the shade Peacock, which is one of my favorites in the palette. It's this deep, rich, kind of slightly shifty tone. Liberty, it's a beautiful olive. And then you've got Wings, which is a green, but it's a little bit light. So you can do these like grungy looks if you want to. And then you also have this shade, and I'm run out of fingers here. So you also have this beautiful brown burgundy satin shade that are perfect for fall, in my opinion. And for me, the thing that makes this palette summery is the purple. You know, if you take the purple out, that's a fall palette. You know, it's a very sort of everyday fall palette, in my opinion. So yeah, I think this is a great option. If you've had your eye on this and you're like, what am I going to get out of this, especially now that the seasons are changing, I think this is a great fall, like, transition palette, guys. I think you can wear this now and you can wear it a month from now. Next up is a more colorful palette that I like for fall, and this is the Ace Beauté Flair palette, and I will show you what it looks like. But this, again, and you'll see, this is a palette that you can use right now, and you'll also see that why it's a palette that you can use for fall. So look at these tones. You've got these bright yellows and acid greeny limes. You've got these beautiful bright oranges and berries, but you've got these teals, again, the green. You've got these oranges that can do like a nice, beautiful, like sunset eye, but you can also do with the brown, you can deepen it up and do like a fall leaf vibe. You've got a little bit of a neutrally kind of mushroomy, very pale, like it's taupe, but it also is almost like mauve-y. It's a beautiful shade. You can do so much with this palette. This is such a well-rounded color story. It's not a rainbow palette, but it gives you so many options, you know? So yeah, I think I just immediately thought of this one. I'm like, you know, Flair is actually a beautiful palette. It's a beautiful palette now, and it's a beautiful palette for fall. Next up is the third Natasha Denona palette on this little list, and this is the Trio Chrome palette. So of the three that are on the list, this is the most expensive. The other two were her midi size palettes, which are $65. This one is a full size, so this is $129. So this is a pricier palette, but hear me out, and I will show it to you. This palette is such a stunner, and honestly, this has sort of moved up in my ranking for me over the last like 6 months or so. I did a Natasha Denona ranking, but honestly, I feel like I would update it at some point and change a few things around, because this palette has moved up quite a bit on the list for me because of the fact that I just think it's such a deceptively versatile palette. Like when you look at this, you know, you've got these acid tones and you've got these kind of pastels, and it can look a bit like, okay, but it's so beautiful for spring. It's so beautiful for summer. I actually like pairing this palette with the pastel palette, that I would use those two together for spring and summer. But also, if you're somebody who wants color, but you don't want super brights and you still want to incorporate color going from summer into fall, this is a great way to do it. I mean, yes, you've got these, but you've also got these beautiful muted tones, and then you've got you know, her trio chromes, which are really just kind of like duochromes, which is fine. They're really easy to wear. They're wearable shades. So I just feel like this entire palette, you can create some beautiful looks. And again, you've got the acid yellows, but then you've got the army green. You've got pinks, but they're all like muted tones. The oranges are very muted. So it just gives you a very, like, it gives you the color without it being too much going into fall. And again, I think this palette is stunning. Next up is one of my favorite neutral palettes in my collection. And I always include a neutral palette in one of these types of videos because I think it's important. I love color. I love neutrals. I don't discriminate against colors. I love them all. But I know that not everybody wants, you know, color. They don't, you know, especially you may not be able to wear color, you know, in your day-to-day life, you know, at work. So maybe you're looking for something that's like a neutral palette that I can wear now and I can use now, but that I know will still work for me come, you know, September, October. And so I will be showing you my Artist Couture Supreme Nudes, which is one of my favorite neutral palettes. Here it is. And I'm gonna pull back so you can see. Do you see how beautiful that is? It's a bit in tone. It's a little bit less warm than the bronze palette from Natasha Denona, but it has the same vibe in the sense that it's got these sort of orange based neutrals, but these are less intense. So if you find the bronze palette to be too intense for your skin tone, which I know people who are paler than me have said that they find the bronze palette to be really intense because Natasha Denona's palettes are incredibly intense as far as the formulation. They always apply to the eye a little bit deeper than they actually are in the pan. The tone is the same, but it's just a richer, more pigmented payoff, which I love, but I know is, you know, for something that's sort of a little bit more red based, it can be a little bit intimidating if you have a lighter skin tone. So this is a really good alternative to that. It's also cheaper, so that's another thing. But this one has, as you can see, it has the mattes, it has the browns and the oranges, it has these beautiful golds, these lighter tones, and then it has this beautiful olivey green metallic, and then also has these more intense golds like opulence and things like that that you may want to pull out for, you know, your fall looks. When that tends to be when I'm really into golds, is when I'm sort of transitioning from summer to fall, and I want those like really rich, warm fall golds, you know, that make you think about, you know, pumpkins and all those things, like yummy colors. That's when I tend to reach for shades like that. But this is a beautiful palette. I think this is probably the best palette that Artist Couture has released. I was not a fan of the Supreme Mauves, but this one is in my top for favorite neutrals. So, and lastly, I have my Lime Crime Venus XL2. This is a great palette. I mentioned this in my favorite spring palettes, and I'm bringing it up again for a transition palette for fall because, again, look at the tones. Look how soft they are, but they give you have so many options in here. And the thing that I like about this, and that it's the thing that I thought I would dislike about it, but it's a quality that I've come to really appreciate with this palette, is that it's incredibly soft. And when I say soft, I mean the tones are very wearable. So even though you're getting these greens and you've got these rosy tones and you've got these sort of mauvey tones and these bronzes, they're so beautiful on the eye. And again, if I have pictures, I will insert some looks that I've done with this palette. And they're some of my favorite looks that I've done. I love the overall, like, you still get color, you still get a little bit of drama, but it's just wearable, you know. And again, these are tones that we often find ourselves reaching for in the fall anyway. So if you want something, again, if you're looking for color, but you want something that's more wearable than some of the other palettes I've shown, this is a great option. All right, guys, and that is my little list of good transitional, or personally my favorite transitional palettes in my collection. Let me know, what is in your collection as far as eyeshadow palettes that you use for those transitional periods and seasons, you know, as the seasons change over? What do you reach for? Also, let me know in the comments down below, do you own any of these palettes, and have you ever considered wearing them around this time of year? Let me know. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to hit the like button. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye now.